Hi, I'm Nicole Kemper. I'm a writer, filmmaker, and actor living in Atlanta, Georgia. This is 50 Foot Woman, and I may not be a trained professional, but that's not going to stop me from taking this camera apart. So if you've been watching my videos, you know that I recently bought a Canon 1014 Super 8 camera. The first two cartridges went great. Then when I was shooting the third cartridge, I wanted to try slow motion. So there's a little button on the side of the Canon 1014 where you can hold it down and it will shoot in a higher frame rate. And once I did that, the cartridge got jammed up and the camera started free running. So even when I don't have the trigger pressed down, the camera is just running. And the only way to turn it off is to actually switch it so that the camera is kind of locked and won't run at all. So in trying to research if other people have had this problem, I found a blog article, and I also found a really helpful video, which I will link below, about this problem, which is apparently common with this particular model, and it's called the sticky trigger. I think sometimes it also results, this internal problem sometimes also results in you press down the trigger and it doesn't fire at all. I didn't want to spend as much as I had paid for the camera to get it serviced. So I thought, what the hell? I've got this blog article, I've got this video I can watch. Maybe I can follow the instructions and see if I can take the camera apart and fix it myself. So that's what I did. Here's how it went the first time. Very well. The main problem is that I didn't have the right tools. So I'm going to save you the trouble and tell you exactly what tools that you need to take apart a Super 8 camera should you be crazy enough to try this yourself. You will need a rubber mat to do this on, preferably magnetized. So the one that I have actually has little divots and they're numbered, and you can actually separate the screws out, which I'm going to tell you is pretty important because there's a lot of tiny screws. And it's important to put things back kind of in the same order that you took them apart. More on this later. I'm going to do a whole video about my experience putting the camera back together, but the mat is actually really helpful because you can divide up all the pieces in a really clear way, and the bits on the mat that are magnetized will keep the screws from like rolling off and you losing them. A screwdriver set with tiny removable heads. Also some tools to kind of scrape or get underneath things or pry things off. Tweezers to pick up tiny parts. I actually bought a computer repair kit that had all of these things. So that's what I would recommend. And most importantly, a lens spanner. This is a tool that is particularly good for camera repair. And even though it's for taking apart lenses, there's also a lot of other little buttons and things on the Super 8 camera that can only be removed using a lens spanner. Having some pliers is also helpful. Small pliers that you could get at a craft store would be ideal. And of course, an air blower to blow out all the dust. And there is a lot of dust. Actually, the camera inside was very dirty. I don't think anyone's ever opened it up. I don't think anyone's ever tried to clean it. There's all kinds of things to consider when you take apart a camera and clean it yourself. I also watched some videos about that. Again, I'm gonna do a whole video about putting the camera back together and cleaning it. So I did, while I had it apart, I did decide to clean it out. But one place you can start is just using that air blower to blow out some of the old dust and other like bits and things that have gotten stuck in there. So how do I know what I'm looking for and what it is that's gonna fix this? So based on the video that I watched, there are these two little metal pieces that need to be close together, but not too close. Basically, when you fire the trigger on the camera, those two pieces are supposed to touch, and that creates a sort of an electrical reaction that causes the camera to run. So if they're too close together, then they're just going to keep running and not stop running. And if they're too far apart, then when you hit the trigger, they're not going to connect, and you're not going to get that. Excuse me, I'm not an engineer, I'm not a technician, but you're not going to get that electrical reaction or that electrical spark that's going to cause the camera to actually start running. So you need those two plates to be near each other but not pressed together, and over time sometimes they get stuck together, and you need to get in there with a little screwdriver or like a flathead screwdriver or something, and just kind of separate them a little bit. So based on the video that I watched, I was like, well, I mean, this sounds like exactly my problem, so let me see if I can try to fix that. we're not going to be super formal about this. Hopefully I'm not getting too much mic noise. I really wanted to just kind of have my microphone out while I was doing the part where I actually try to fix this. So my problem is, of course, when I turn it on, you can hear it just kind of running continuously. Doesn't sound great. And of course, we want it to run when the trigger fires. That's when we want it to run. Basically, there's this little guy in here, little plate in there that supposedly if I push those back together, it will go back to running properly. And then, of course, I think I'm going to call it a night and put this somewhere where it will be safe. Obviously, I've got a lot of screws and things. I did, in the course of taking this apart, there is a piece here. Let me just put this down. There is a piece on this side that did get a little bit roughed up. I think it was just the plastic was kind of old. And it broke apart a bit. So I am going to try to clean this up. I'm going to have to glue back some pieces. So I might, I'm now also going to be doing, perhaps a bit of cleaning and restoration while I've got this thing apart. I might as well. So I do have all the pieces here. I'm trying to keep everything together and trying to be as gentle as possible with all these pieces so I don't lose anything. I'm probably going to call it a night if I can get this to work. And then over the next couple of days before I go out of town, I will try to clean this up and put it back together. So unfortunately, I was not able to really fix the problem. As you can hear, it is still running. I did get it to... Oh, I dropped one of my tools. I did get it to sort of run properly at points, but basically I think if I were to put it back together, I don't think it would stay fixed for too long. The problem is these pieces are not staying far enough apart, but when you separate them too much, they don't really come back together. So then the motor doesn't fire at all, which is certainly not going to help. So at this point, yeah, see, once you press the trigger again, it just kind of sticks. So we did our best, or at least the best within our abilities. This is the little guy right here that I was hoping to fix. I have tried to bend him in many different ways, and I can see him sort of firing. But as you can see, it'll work for like a second and everything just kind of gets bent out of shape again. So I think that these sort of 3 plates here are just a little too, maybe just at this point bent in a way that it's kind of difficult to get them back into the shape that they're supposed to be. Well, that seems to be going okay. I don't know that once I put it back together, that seems to be working a bit better. I did seem to do something. That seemed to sort of get it back in order. We'll see. I'll put it back together. I'm not confident it will stay fixed. This may just be a camera that is, well, it seems to be working okay right now. I can tell you for sure I won't be using the slow motion anytime soon, as that seems to have triggered this problem. I did seem to do something that has worked longer than some of the other things that I tried. Well, I mean, hey, the good news that we got, so whatever I did that time seems to have made some difference. So I'm just going to call it a win for now. Obviously, I'm not an experienced technician when it comes to working with cameras. I just wanted to see if I could fix this problem right now. Oop. So see, now it doesn't want to fire at all. I do think this is perhaps an ongoing problem that may or may not be fixable. It may just be that some of these connections are not as functional as they once were. So we'll see. This may lead to me using this camera only for certain things, and I may have to get a different one. I still want a camera that will, where I can have the ability to run in 24 frames per second. Let's see, there we go. See, it's firing. It's questionable. That's for sure. So we'll close back up. We'll see how it goes. And this one might last me for a while, and it might just be that this one has some personality, but we took a camera apart. We learned some things. This is something that was certainly outside of my comfort zone. So it was definitely a learning experience, and there will have to be some restoration that goes along with this. It definitely needs to be cleaned, and some of these leather or faux leather parts that are on the camera may need to be cleaned and placed back down. Anyway, there's a lot of stuff that needs to be put back together, which I'm not going to tackle tonight. But I guess it was certainly an interesting journey, and somewhat successful. It's successful for now. Tonight we'll call it a win. So there you go. It is possible to take apart a Super 8 camera. Like I said, I think it really helps if you can find a video or a blog post or just something, especially with pictures or video instructions to guide you along as you're taking it apart. Obviously, if you're experienced with taking apart and fixing cameras, it's possible you may be able to find your way around. If you buy a camera and it doesn't work, so let's say you purchased a camera at a vintage store or something, it's certainly possible that if you found the right instructions, you could take it apart and see if you could try to fix it. I mean, really, honestly, at that point, you have nothing to lose. If it doesn't work out, you take it apart. If you're not able to fix it, you put it back together. It sits on your shelf just like it would have if you had purchased it and it didn't work and you did nothing at all. There are a lot of qualified camera professionals that service these cameras, so I'm not suggesting that you don't send your camera to get serviced. Right off the top of my head, Pro 8mm has a couple of models that they specialize in fixing. Again, my reasoning for not sending the camera to a professional had more to do with the fact that in calculating how much it would cost, it seemed to me like I would have spent about as much as I'd paid for the camera. So my thinking was I can either spend about as much money as I paid for the camera to fix this camera that may or may not break again, or I could look at some other models, invest in a different camera that doesn't have this particular problem, and in taking this camera apart, maybe I can learn something about this vintage camera. So to sum up, with some diligence and the right tools, if you're willing to try it out, you can take a Super 8 camera apart. I would say it's fixed-ish. So even if I'm not confident that the problem is completely resolved, I'm still glad that I did this because I feel like it was a really good learning experience for me. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, subscribe to the channel. I put out new videos every Wednesday. I will be doing a follow-up video about putting the camera back together, as well as cleaning the camera and what are some tips for cleaning, or possibly if your camera is like mine, very old and probably hasn't been serviced, lubricating some of the pieces. I also have a blog where I get into more of my still photography and photo walks and things like that. So if that's of interest to you, I will link that below in the description of the video. So don't be afraid to go outside your comfort zone. Definitely do your research, have the right tools, but if you've got a camera and she's just sitting on your shelf looking pretty, maybe you could take her apart and give her a new life. So be brave. Some of these cameras might have a few more years or even decades of good filmmaking ahead of them.